So it's not essentially designed for those types of scenarios. So this is the opening screen of Specify. This is what you get once you log into the system. There is a wizard system that comes before this for creating a blank database. Now, most of you guys already have data in a database, and either we would assist you in getting that data into SIX, or you guys would, your IT folks would work with us in terms of trying to get the data in there. But for those folks who have nothing in a database to start with and they want to start from scratch, we have a wizard system that leads them through creating all of the usernames that they need to connect up to MySQL, creates all of their usernames within the database, creates a discipline, a division, and a collection, and creates all of that stuff, imports their taxonomy, creates all of their trees, etc., and gets them to this point with a blank database. Then at that point, they need to decide whether they want to customize the forms in any way, or if they want to create any reports, etc., and most of that work would be done by us as a service that we would provide. We can customize your forms the way you want them, we can create your reports the way that you want them, and then ship them back to you, and we have a resource import-export type scenario where we can just ship you a report, you can dump it in and import it into the system, and it's ready to go. Okay, so we'll just go through a couple of the elements that are contained in the system. Up at the top here is your menu tree, which is your mechanism of getting into the different pieces of the package. You have a data entry system where you would be entering all of your data. You have your trees. We have a bunch of trees now in Specify. We've converted the geography into a tree, so that you gain all of the necessary applications of being able to drag and drop stuff and rename and synonymize, etc., and we'll go into that in a little bit. You have your reports, which is all of your labels and loan forms, etc. You have your interactions, which is your accessions, your permits, your gifts, your loans, your borrows, your exchanges, etc. You have a statistics page, which gives you brief statistics about your collection. The query builder, which is your mechanism of drilling down into your data and bringing back the information that you're interested in. And then the workbench, which is integrated into Specify 6 itself. Up at the top here, we have a simple search, which is essentially creating flat file versions of your database and creating a mechanism for you to very easily do simple and dirty searches through your collection. Single term searches, like for a particular country, or for a particular species name, or for a particular collector, or whatever it may be, so that you don't have to construct these really complex queries in order to be able to get into your data. You can just quickly go up there and type in a date, and it'll come back with all the information that you're looking for in your database. It's obviously not going to cover every single scenario of these huge big queries that you want to create of, a range of catalog numbers collected by a particular person in a particular country between these particular dates. Those sorts of things you would have to do through the query builder. But it is a really nifty way of just quickly going in and searching for something in your collection. Then each of the menu items up at the top there is also associated with a left-hand sidebar, which is then your mechanism of getting into the individual tables and actually cataloging information into the system. So you can go in and you can catalog information at any particular level. If you just want to go in and throw in 100,000 agents, you can do it. You can go in and you can add them one at a time through the agent table. If you just want to go in and put in some geographies, you can go and do that. You don't have to go through the collection object screen. You can go through any of those, and then there's a More Forms button which leads you to ancillary forms in the system as well. We've also instigated this tabbing system down at the bottom here, where now you can have multiple things open at once. So you can be doing data entry in one screen, you can be looking at your tree in another screen, you can be producing a loan in another screen, you can be doing a query in another screen, and you can have them all open at once and you can tab between them. So it makes for very efficient workflow in terms of not having to shut down data entry so that you can go and do a loan, and then shutting that down so that you can look at your tree. You can now do them all at once and just efficiently tab between them. So this is the simple search mechanism. Essentially, it's made up of primary queries and related queries. So the primary queries are those tables where it's found a primary hit for the search term that you are looking for. So if you're searching for a date, it'll probably come back with the collecting event table, or the locality table, or the loan table, etc., etc. But then we also have a whole bunch of related queries that then relate that primary piece of information to other tables in the system, so that you can go and do a query on geography and then figure out which collection objects are associated with that geography item, etc., etc. And all of this stuff is malleable by you as the user. So here's your screen where you can determine which fields you actually want to search, which fields you want to display from that search, and it lists all of the fields that are being searched on the right-hand side there, so that you can get a good indication of which fields are being searched. And then you have all of your related searches where you can go and you can activate any of these or turn them off based on which pieces of information you want to get back from your system. So these are the searches that would relate a primary piece of information to a secondary piece of information. And with a little bit of playing around, you can figure out exactly which searches you need to be able to bring back all of the information you're looking for. This is a data entry screen. All of the forms that are in Specify 6 are generated through XML scripts. Essentially, you can think of this as a piece of graph paper with a bunch of columns on it. And then essentially the XML script just goes through and says, okay, I want this field here, I want it to span 2 columns, or I want this field here, I want it to span 4 columns, etc., etc. And you just go through and you specify exactly what you want your form to look like. There is no form customizer in Specify 6, so there is no user mechanism, no UI on top of the XML for users to be able to go and fiddle around with it. But it is, again, a service that we will provide, or that you guys can do in-house with some XML knowledge. Obviously, one of the things that we are trying to do with this whole community collaboration type scenario is try and come up with experts that are in these larger museums and in other countries who can do some of this work for us, who can actually go and customize forms and do the importing of data into databases, etc., etc. And I'm sure you guys have more than enough experience in-house to be able to do that. So essentially, this is what your data entry screen would look like. And again, you can manipulate this in any way you like. You can add fields, you can take fields off, you can make them bigger, you can change the captions, you can change the way a particular subform of information is being shown. This is your preparation subform. You can show it as a grid, you can show it as a button, you can show it as a subform. The world's your oyster, really, in terms of the way that you can show up these forms and add fields and take fields out and manipulate it so that it looks exactly the way that you want to and has all the fields of information that you want to be able to use. One of the areas that we've expanded is the taxon area, where now you have 3 separate fields: a preferred taxon, and an alternate taxon. So now what you can do is you can go in synonymizing names. You can go in and type in a taxonomic name into that field. When you type in the taxonomic name, it'll come down with a drop-down list of all the available terms in your taxonomic tree. So you type in the first couple of letters and it comes down with a drop-down list of available options. You can either pick an option from the list if it's something that's already in your tree, or you can decide to add it by hitting the add button at the top there, and here's your taxonomic form. So you can go in and add a new entry based on a parent. So everything obviously has to be parented in the tree so that it occurs in the correct position. But you can parent it up and get it sorted out. We now have hybrid capabilities so that you can put in 2 parents as a hybrid and create a hybrid species based on whatever it is that you're doing. Once you've then entered that information, it'll appear in the taxon name form. If it is an old name, if it is a synonym name for a new name, it'll prompt you and say, do you want to enter this as an old name, or do you want to put in the preferred taxon? If you decide to keep the old name, it'll keep the old name in here, but it'll give you an indication in the preferred taxon name of what the preferred taxon name is for that particular species. The other thing that you can do is you can put in an alternate name, which is essentially any name that you don't want to include in your taxonomic authority. So essentially another name that comes from another authority, or a name that you're shelving it by, or anything like that. And you can put that name in here, and then you can specify in this name usage drop-down list why you're using that name. And it's an either or. You can either use a taxon name or an alternate name, not both, for a determination. But you can create multiple determinations for a single specimen. So you can go in and put as many determinations in as you like to try and keep a history of the taxonomic record of that particular specimen. And we can talk about this a little later when we actually do the demo. Collecting event is much the same thing. We in Fishers reuse our collecting events over and over again, and so you need to be able to pick them from a list. So again, you type in the first couple of letters, it'll come up with a pick list of all the collecting events that are in the system already. You can either decide to add it, or you can add a new one. This is your collecting event table that has all your station field number, your start date, your end date, your start time, your end time. Again, a whole bunch of fields can be added to this form if you want to.